It's the ants and the grasshoppers. Wait a minute. Ants and the crickets, isn't it? Is there any difference? Slob and old grasshoppers, slob and crickets going to get themselves taken over. And winter's going to come on them. Whether that's by the nature of the sun and what it's doing or our apathy. There's a dark winter coming. I make the reference to the ant and grasshopper because I am just impressed by the persistence and the mass numbers of ants and what they do, how they invade. We could take a lot of lessons from how they work. Or not. And that's my problem. I think we're more apt to not. Yeah, sigh and pause. Wondering what's up. How are we going to do this? Are we going to keep doing the revolution? People don't even know they've been in a revolution. All of humanity for almost all time has been in a revolution. No one stopped to think about, wait a minute, let's just break that wheel. Stop happening. What goes around comes around. Let's just stop that. Let's take responsibility and just make sure that we don't let anything, any adultery to any of what we see up on us. Don't give in to those that would have their way with us. This, I guess, will be BTW for a podcast or pastcast. And for the blogcaster content, those of you that do read and read up, this will be BTWRLM208. So we are being dealt with, and it's because really there's no one. Well, I say no one. There's nothing, and where there's specificity, no one doesn't apply. Where I explain to you weekly what we do to interrupt all this, it doesn't apply there. And those of you that are doing that, again, I thank you very much. But for the rest that are really taking the, well, I don't even know what it is. I don't know. It's like, it almost sounds like a judgment. It's a choice you've made to allow things, take the rest, you and the rest everybody down, and I guess you hope you sneak through, and I guess you could. We don't have a monopoly on how long we live here. So, there's lots of ways we be taken down, and we allow it. There are lots of excuses that we put forward that we continue to let go, and we allow crime against us, and we don't step up to arrest it. We'll talk big game. We'll talk about all those rights. We'll talk about all this stuff, but we'll just keep talking. Whether that becomes in the form of chats or emails or letters or whatever. We don't step up and put ourselves in the place that we need to be. Make the records and the arrests that need to start happening. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it has to happen. For as long as you've been hearing me talk, those of you that have been with me for a long time, we've been doing the process. It's taking that long. I suspect, though, it's like anything. Once they build a wall, and once you break it down, then they can be easily invaded. And we are chipping every day as we can. Chip, chip, chip against the wall of oppression that's been built up around us. You want to build the wall? That's just another mind game. It's already been built. If you can't tell that by what's going on around you, and you are okay with that, then I don't know about you. But one of the ways that they've defeated us was to steal the value of us, and they did it in interesting ways. Again, I keep reminding myself of this Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and what came to me was it was like a manual, human frailties manual, and they were telling us there's people out there, however they want to identify themselves, whether they're in a group or just someone who figures this out, that we are easily, we're dupable. And we'll do things against our own interest, and we'll do it until we get to the point that we're near dead about it. And so one of the ways they come after us silently, and they understand we don't have a concept of it, and then they make systems that you don't understand either. No one stops to say, wait a minute, that went from my hand into your fiction. Was the minting of coins to the printing of money. And one of the reports that came out here that the Royal Mint top secret security patents behind the new £1 coin was exposed. And I wasn't really interested in this, except to point out, they tell you that it's not value, right in here. And I would think that people would have a hue and cry against even them wasting time on all this. But it says the most secure coin in the world uses new techniques to combat counterfeiting. So they get us all focused on all these, technocracy techniques. And then you go down and read the story, and they go through and they'll tell you all about these coins. But then you read about the coin itself, and they're talking about forgeries and counterfeiting. Oh, that must be a big deal. And, okay, well, what is this coin, though? Supposed coin. They shouldn't even be able to use that term unless it has its species. But we've kind of allowed that to go. But here's the description. This is really all I want to talk about. Not talk about it, just point it out and move on. The new pound one coin is a bimetallic, a gold-colored ring around a silvery core. Now, that's all I want to say. It's like when they came out with the dollar in the United States. They called it a golden coin. See, they throw these at us, and we think that there's something important, and they're so safe and counterfeit, but they're valueless. They actually aren't valueless. I guess I noticed the Twitter that went through, and someone asked a question, and I said, from whose perspective? From their perspective, they own you. From your perspective, it's your servitude or valueless, literally. They go through how they construct these coins, and they're really constructed. They're not out of metal anymore. They're out of a composite layering. And they tell you that it costs them a whole lot less to keep you in servitude now. It's going to save them a whole lot of money to do this, because it takes a whole lot of cash to, apparently, the fake money that they print to pay for the printing of the money. That these coins, which last a lot longer, can be constructed out of things like thin metallized materials that are colored a certain color, that have polymer insert layers and all this other nonsense. But the coin is only costing them about 18 cents to make a 1 pound coin. Should have been the first clue. But this is costing the purveyors of debt and debt upon you. It's costing them less money now to come up with this new coin, because apparently 46 million coins out there are counterfeit. That makes them look bad, I suppose. It's all just a fiction, but it's not their fiction. And so there's just silvery core and colored ring of gold is all you get if that's what you're into, shiny things. This is the grouper mentality, the school of fish, and the shiny things that they offer as bait that we collect up. We should not accept that. I know this is the 1 pound, but before you say too much in the United States of America, the United States, I should say, because you're all debtors to the central district. McCain now introduces a bill to update currency and eliminate the penny. This is, I guess we can call this the McCoin. It's not the real McCoy for sure. It too, and again, you're not going to have pennies in the future. They are going to adulterate the money, the nickel, for those of you that have been collecting nickels, because of the nickel, and it costs more for the material. The miner makes the mineral. It's costing more now for the miner to get the mineral to the market than it did before, even to make the nickel. That those of you in, I guess, the scrap side, you're going to have to be just like the penny. Pretty soon, you're going to be buying more copper than nickel in the nickel. You're not going to have a penny, which really doesn't matter, because what is it? It's not real. It's not money. It's this fabricated, layered stuff. They did this layering, I think, maybe as far back as 83, though I didn't go back and look at all that. It's irrelevant to me, other than to know that it's all fake. The Currency Optimization, Innovation, and National Savings Act of 2017, called the Coins Act. They're so cute about how they do this. Currency Optimization, Innovation, and National Savings Act, it's coins, C-O-I-N-S, pretty cute, which would modernize our currency by moving to a $1 coin. So I've told you, watch out, modernization is detrimental to you. They also promote it as money, like it's real money, and it's not. Again, they just give you the shiny stuff, and you think it's real. But they're going to now modernize your money and make it become more profitable to the bankers that are running this whole show. And you can continue to plug into that, as we are told we will do under Silent Weapons Quiet Wars, and because of our human fallen nature that we're told of in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. So again, they're not. They know we're so clueless. We're so absent. We're so slothful, if I can use that word, that we can be told and we still won't move. Now, I say that en masse. We're not going to move en masse. We need to start moving en masse, and that short circuits. That's one of the ways it short circuits this whole thing. And these coins, there should be a hue and cry against them wasting time and money making stuff that's not real money. They tell you it's $1 and it's actually only cost them 18 cents, and it's not even $1 because it's based on the fraud. And so McCain is again, people think Republicans and this and that, they're American, make America great again. This is not going to make America great. And this guy is the tip of the spear. This guy is a gangrenous walking wound in America. It's like most all the politics in government. And so most people will say, well, what can you do against it? Well, what are you going to do when you don't do anything? You're going to continue to do this, and they continue to suck your wealth, and pretty soon you're living on the street because you can't afford the basics of life because they've kept doing this with your money. So whatever's happened in Britain is happening in the United States. It's global. They focus you on certain really irrelevant points. Who cares about it costing less money, or that it's more secure, or that it's the fraud. It's these privateers plundering you with these trinkets. Another way they do that is that these things that they cause you to take, which is what they base their taxation on as well. You're using their tool is you're taking benefit of what they've invented, their invention, and so they tax you for that. People haven't figured all this out. As people hear about it, but they don't know what to do. They talk, but they won't do a dang thing. As I was hearing Ron Stephen, I guess it is, talk about going through the traffic thing and this and that. I offered 2 questions to start his record out. People don't start their record before they go get in trouble. And I've been suggesting this to do this for a long time now. I don't know how many years. I don't really keep track of that. It's just one week after the next. I committed to do this, and so I'm still committing. Yeah, I'm committable, I guess. I'm committed. We have to engage, and so I'm doing it where I found out to do it, and we can be effective, but it's not enough of us, and we're not taking it anymore. And I found there's a certain way to go about it, and since we'll complain about that administrative world we live in, but we haven't sat down for the most of a part of it and figured out how that administrative world works. We just complain about it. When I sat down and worked on how about that works, and just admitted to the fact that this is how you're processed, and this is partly the tools of how they defeat you as well, and they are the seats of decision. When I figured all this out, it was the only way that I couldn't not figure it out in order to come up with what I could come up with. And so we take our little part. If we had more people taking their part, a lot of this nonsense will go away pretty quickly. We have a choice on what the money that we use. We can use the McCoin, the tomfoolery that continues on that, or we can denounce this gangrenous walking wound that McCain is. And those like him. So we get pumped up for the plunder. So they print this fiat currency, and now they're going to make it coins. In fact, there's been a complaint now. The stripper clubs are worried that the new coin, they're going to get rid of the dollar because they're going to replace it, and the new coin's going to be too heavy for the dancers. Now, Kane's SMART behind response was, well, that should promote bigger bills being used. So he's a witty kind of guy, going to be at your expense. But this is it reduced down pretty quickly that this coin was going to be interruptive of the stripper clubs because the coins would be just too heavy. The other thing that they do is tax you. Not only do they diminish your value, and you've done it because you don't choose the proper money, the money, the things that make money, not operate as money, the things that transfer value. Remember, gold is property always. And so you're transferring in gold, you're transferring property. I don't see how there's a distinction against silver. So you're transferring a man's life or a woman's life for mining the metal. They mint it into a form and it's used for a purpose. Is the man's livelihood or woman's livelihood to pull that material out of the earth, process it, getting it into the hands of people that need it, of something that is durable and easily compared to other properties like we call them now commodities, but they're actually production. They're production products. They're, the rice, the corn, the metals, the trees, whatever we can use in surrogates to money. Again, even puka shells. You had to go dive in or know where the puka shell tops collected in the ocean and go collect them. You had to produce those from Mother Nature. That's wealth. That's coming directly wealth. They don't do this. But so they tax us on even the use of this, and we are plundered again. And then the system has figured out if within that tax structure we can make tax liabilities, we can pull even more, make life even more austere under these false pretenses. What I've explained to you over and over, and it's been coming up even more and more, this stalking horse stakeholder consensus discussion is one of the main methods how they do it, which gets me over to how this fraud that's been put on us, this alternative dispute that's never existed, that was fabricated and put into play, that everyone swallowed hook, line, and sinker because we're just the groupers that we is. Now, last week after I got off the broadcast, it came out, the story. This is related eventually now to carbon taxing, where they're going to, just your existence now is taxable. That wouldn't be taxable if you were in specie, because they have no jurisdiction to tax property that way. And it would be violating other covenants that created the ability to get there. But United States scientists now, astonishingly, like they didn't, the cart before the horse, but now they're going to give legitimacy and qualify the fact of what you see. United States scientists launch world's biggest solar geoengineering study. United States scientists launch world's biggest solar engineering study. Subheading is research program, spelled 2 M's and an E here. Now, I don't know about the United States. I don't know where in the United States they use PROGRAMME, except for out of the UN and the Europe. So these are also, now we're seeing kind of an oxymoron going on already. As I tell you, just in the you can just look at the titles here and see there's a problem. But this research program will send aerosol injections into the Earth's atmosphere to study the risks and benefits of future solar tech fix for climate change. That subheading requires that you buy into the concept of the IPCC definition of what climate change is. Not that climate changes. There's a natural variance in climate, but that there is a specific definition for this, that you have to buy into that when you agree. These so-called U.S. scientists, which end up being academia making experimentation in the atmosphere, are now saying that they're going to inject aerosols. And you can go through the story. The point I want to just point out here, if you haven't heard it, if you have, you probably already have a thought about this, and certainly if you understand it's a big fraud. They're now going to legitimize the sky as what you see, and people will lose the fact that it was supposed to be a very narrow test. First of all, they'll just agree that that's just the science going on. They then also, if you go read some of the stories, they actually talk about that this test, it comes later when one of the scientists that are involved with promoting this from Harvard actually comes up and says, fear of solar engineering is healthy, but don't distort our research. Now, this is all combined links I'll have. The thoughts are that these guys are promoting the false narrative. They're promoting the issue. The stalking horse is climate change. They're going to use consensus basis to promote it, and they already have. The problem is this is a cart before the horse. They're coming after they've been doing these aerosols. They actually agree that the airplanes put out way more of these aerosols that they're going to be testing than their little test is going to put out. So if you look kind of between the lines, you realize that they're exposing, for those that didn't think about it or that think here is now the words out of their mouth, that they agree that there's aerosols, that they're going to do a sun shield, that they're going to try and do the solar thing. Well, let me point out the other oxymoron. Solar geoengineering in the same context as climate change is another oxymoron, because climate change, by IPCC definition, does not know the sun. This is Galileo 2.0. Galileo won again. They're just now focusing on the sun being a contributor. You won't find that in their definition under climate change, though. Now they just admit there's now two parts to this. And I also admit that the sun is a vastly greater contributor to the so-called forcing that they've been saying that humans do. So you're seeing in this one little story a whole lot more than just the fact that they're agreeing that they're going to do some tests. So the sun is out there and it has an effect, and they're saying that they're going to be able to control this. Again, the height of arrogance. This is man-made climate change. That's Michael Mann made this climate change. This is not climate variability. All of a sudden now, with the pressure, and I don't know if it came from this Trump and the exposure now, but they're having to get more correct with what they've been doing, but they're going to pass it right by most everybody. I'm certainly not talking to anybody that already sees this problem, but they are going to pass this poisoning of our atmosphere right by most everybody. And again, remember, Title 50, if this comes underneath the military, which I probably does, for climate engineering, which happened a long time ago. It used to be a man come to your farm in the late 1800s and had a secret about how he could call rain to your area, and that used to be the more natural way to do it. About 1928, science so-called got involved, and they find out if they throw certain chemistry up in the sky, it can bring condensed liquid. By 1953, it's official. It starts to come into laws about the 30s, about weather modification. Weather modification, not climate. So they adjusted here. So not today, we've been watching these trails in the sky, and it's been denied and or not spoken to. Mostly it's just being silent on it. That they're going to agree to put this up. Now my problem with all this is when you read these links that I give to you, and one of the links is from The Guardian, and they have a whole years of articles that have been written, and you just look at some of the stories and you can see really the tale of the fraud, how it's been promoted and what they're how they hedge things and how things didn't work out and how it really hasn't been so cool with a lot of people. Again, more evidence as I look at it here, but don't you think they're talking about making models about whether or not this technology is going to work, that's going to adjust our Earth's atmosphere? Don't you think that they should have had that as part of the climate change definition? Don't you think they should have had an understanding of this before they imposed upon you this thing called carbon tax, this thing that they put in through your transportation codes, these issues about going to smart, got to check out how much carbon you're using through electricity, destroying your dams and then destroying the coal so that you have to pay more for getting these other forms of energy, or have to pay taxes on coal because they're claiming that it's a harm, and they're agreeing now they don't even know that that's the case because they are now testing whether or not they finally recognize the sun. They came out of their cave, they finally recognized the sun. They're now sun worshippers, and we already need an umbrella. That sounds like someone that's been in the winter all the time, hadn't seen sun for a decade of his life, got pure white skin, and all of a sudden gets blistered because he comes out of his cave for one time. I need to make a shade over that. This is a cart before the horse problem. This should have been tested before they got involved. They actually throw in questions about the volcanoes as well, so they're now realizing nature's out there. There's a reality. And I'm going to just suggest to you, and not knowing any scientist that I could trust to say it, if they wanted to know what aerosols in the sky, what it does, all they got to do is park their test underneath a volcano. Now let the ash do what it's going to do, and then park themselves a little farther out and a little farther out. And they can find out what these what the natural base is that they're dealing with. But to buy into this means that you have to buy into their decision to make the test to start putting aerosol poisons and toxins. They'll say, oh, we're just going to start with water, frozen water, then we'll move to calcium, and then maybe we'll move into aluminum oxide. Folks, that's what they're doing now. Remember, years and years ago, I ran across that humic acid study, and I talked to you about it. And I said they're finding out what it takes for humic acid to destroy this aluminum oxide they're spraying. We found out in a substantial, with enough humic acid, this is the acid that's created by the biological acid in the soil, that it takes 3 days to destroy the evidence of the toxic spraying. It was aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide is a very interesting substance. Again, metal oxides are interesting in their own. So they're already telling you that they're coming down the same pike that's already been doing it. But they're having to rationalize now in their program nature. The problem is climate change is a relationship of a statistic. It's not based in reality. So to do this, you would have to agree that the climate change is something that they can test on. Where's the control is my first thought. But anyway, this is a big deal. I think this is a bigger, it's not just for the geoengineering or climate chemtrail people to say, see, I told you. This is another method. They've gotten the old narrative finished. It was done. I told you that like weeks and maybe months ago. They're now transitioning. They now had to agree to the reality a bit. But they are bringing in, they commingle the fraud with the real is the problem here. So it's not just enough to say, see, I knew, these chemtrails will be, what there could be or what these guys are going to do. And who are they to do that too? So give me back to Title 50. In Title 50, they're required to give you notice. That's the notice. They just did it. You'll get the link. They're going to make this program. You're now obligated to send a notice to find out who's going to be in charge of all this, even if it's back to Harvard, and say cease and desist until you get your science correct to know you should be doing this. And if frozen water was such a big deal, why wasn't water one of the major contributors instead of carbon dioxide? Not only do we hear a fraud and we hear a scam, but we don't even think if you're capable of understanding the dynamic to be even starting the experiment. Make your voice known to Harvard as well. This is, again, to me, it's just all this stuff is notice. It's notice. They call it news. It's notice. You are given the notice from the law. If you read enough that I tell you to go read, you'll see it all lays out exactly the way I've been suggesting to you, and this is what they have to do. You don't have to analyze it like I am. I'm just telling you that's how they're doing the method. This is the method within the consensus nonsense. They have I think Udall Foundation is real good on this one. They have a whole governmental agency that works out how to take you out with this stuff. And people are oblivious to it. Now, I'm not, and the people I know are not, and this is what we can fight, and this is what we do fight, and it is a fight. And I say it's a fight only because there's not enough of you all jumping in where you can. It's not a fight like a physical fight, though, and that's what's interesting about it. No one loses arms and legs like it might have used to been. So, U.S. scientists launch world's biggest solar geoengineering study is an acknowledgement the sun lives, folks. It's real. They just got it. Why wasn't that in their climate change definition? Is the tip of the fraud. Now they're trying to justify it. Fear of solar engineering is healthy. Well, if it's healthy, then that statement alone by these people that come out of Harvard and the people that promote it is your grounds to shut it down, because if my fear is of solar engineering is healthy, then all I have to do is bring up why they may not have competence to do the test even yet. Because they promoted climate change all up until now, until they started the question, which should have happened before they asserted climate change. Cart before the horse here. So in these links, you also get to go to a little movie. It's pure propaganda about how these people, almost sounds like an April Fool's joke, but it happened before April Fool's. This is April 2nd. I guess this is April Fool's squared, right? So I guess I can do this to you. You know, on my whole broadcast will be this April Fool's joke on steroids. What do you think, folks? Would you believe that, or would you test me and prove that it's not an April Fool's joke of how foolish we're being led along by the nose? They produce a propaganda film. I'm going to include it. I hesitated to do that, but then I said, well, my listeners have to be intelligent enough to be able to withstand the propaganda, the warm and fuzzies, all they're doing to you. But inside this thing, why I wanted to, I'll send it on to you to the blogcaster, is because they eventually get to all the words and all the reasons why they're giving humanity such a gift. And you have to hear how it's tied into everything I've said about this solutions network, this alternative dispute resolution consensus process. It's the future we want wrapped up in a video for this thing they're now testing for, that they've been already doing it. All right, but that when they did it this way, they prove out that they simply, like, there's other ways to say this, they have the cart before the horse. They've now proven themselves as not competent. Now, right on the heels of this, as I tell you, the cycles of news, notice comes to us so we can use it. Again, to me, this is really always evidence. It's first the notice, but it's the notice of something. And notices give you the opportunity to respond, and the law, the statutes give you the time and maybe the place. If the place is not given, you find it. Notice, opportunity, time, and place is your due process. That's all it is. In this administrative world, it's notice, opportunity, time, and place is the definition of due process. You have to be given notice of certain things that can bear upon you in substantial ways. And then when they've done that, it's all done. But here we have at the end of the week, after all this, and then we are going to commingle this concept of climate change. It's going to be attached now to everything you see, along with the admissions that the original climate change is of no bearing. And I'm going to say that we don't even know that because we didn't prove any of that out. What's a statistic to a relationship? Who cares? Or what's it tied to? Something that isn't proven either. Or you just line this out on a complaint or a objection, and then put teeth in it so you can move forward for an injunction, which is only a 15-day process. People want to make big old deals. I want to go sue for money. No, sue to stop these criminals. Arrest it. And it's a 15-day process if you don't let them take the case by the nose. That's again. So I won't go on and on about that. Sun's impact. Here it comes. Sun's impact on climate change, quantified for the first time, proved what I just told you. That they have the cart before the horse. This should have been proved. This should have been quantified before they came up, before the IPCC and their so-called 97% consensus scientists ought to have had peer-reviewed science of this stuff first. They're admitting they didn't have it if you trust this. The fact that they have tied quantified sun's impact quantified for the first time in climate change is an oxymoron. The sun doesn't exist in climate change as defined. Climate variability, that's the natural term I would maybe feel better comfortable to separate the two so we don't say each is a climate. Here's the statement which shows you the adultery, and then the acknowledgement that the sun's out there and has an impact. And then they go on to tell you, this is where the one that tells you that the sun's impact completely drives whatever man can do. This is not new news to any of you all that's been looking at this and studied it and did your study, not just taking other people's word for it. Not just looked up at the sky, saw the chemtrails and started coughing. No, did the stuff like not that I'm any kind of a perfect example, but long years ago I was looking for those things, that humic acid study that was being done, and said that was before they're even telling us about this. Why was that done? See, they do it the right way. They don't tell you what they're doing. coming to here is the wrong way, but they've been caught. So you're watching the exposure. It's kind of like the aliens have come, folks. I mean, this is the disclosure here. But that the fact is, if you understand what you're seeing, if you're not careful, and most people won't be, you're going to buy into the legitimacy of even this next step, and it's the exposure that should be arrested. The sun's impact in climate change is an oxymoron. There's nothing, the IPCC lives in the dark. There is no sun. That's why you're a heretic. It's no different than Galileo. Galileo prevailed here, folks. Again, Galileo 2.0, Galileo was right. There's a sun. They recognize it, but they're tying it to climate change. There is a human-induced climate change. Comes right out of the gate of this statement. And there are natural climate fluctuations. One important factor in the unchanging rise and fall of the Earth's temperature is its different cycles is the sun. In its different cycles is the sun. As its activity varies, so does the intensity of the sunlight that reaches us. It's not just the light, folks, and it's not just the sun. You ever heard of cosmic rays? For one. You ever heard that they have satellites that measure for helium of different atomic structures? The space isn't absent of everything. They even test for lithium. Why? If space is a vacuum, why are they testing by satellites for all these elements? Those things have charges. They have states. They have all kinds of capacities to do all kinds of things. So they're wrong again here, but they tie animal-induced climate change, which is this fabrication. You have to buy into that to even go on, but let's move on anyway. They're saying the sun's impact can be quantified. I don't even know if that's the truth, but they have to acknowledge the sun, which climate change doesn't. So that first statement is only relative to the old condition that they then commingle with the new reality that they're finally going to have to cough up. As I told you this was coming. Didn't know how they were going to do it, but here it is. As its activity varies, so does the intensity of sunlight that reaches us. One of the key questions facing climate researchers is whether these fluctuations have any effect at all on the Earth's climate. Do you think this should have been the first question they asked before they moved the hypothesis that was based on the relationship of some number? IPCC reports assume that recent solar activity is insignificant for climate change and that the same will apply to activity in the near future. Researchers from the Physical Meteorological Observatory at Davos. This is an inside track, folks. So keep understanding how they're commingling reality now with their fraud to justify it, to legitimize it. What did I say about the stockholder? It's legitimized because it just exists and can impose itself. That's a stakeholder. Like Genghis Khan and his horde coming for a cup of tea. The Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, ETH Zurich, and the University of Bern are now qualifying this assumption. They're finally getting to look at the reality. Why? Because they've been caught. Otherwise, they would have been pushed on through. They would have pushed this lie on through. Now they've got to start really producing some of the real science. They're going to find out, as they will in this case, that you start looking at the science, the sun goes away, but it's too late for us. They've already commingled the concept of climate change as they need constructed, that their carbon taxation and rules come by has to be justified, which in the United States the EPA uses, even though Trump said don't do that. It's still going on, and we're going to find out a little bit maybe why. Their elaborate model calculations are supplying a robust, this investigation, the researchers, their elaborate model calculations are supplying a robust estimate of the contribution that the sun is expected to make to temperature change in the next 100 years. For the first time, a significant effect is apparent. You think it's for the first time, or has it been in the news already for decades? is this the first time? Are these people really telling us the truth in the exposure? I'm suggesting to you highly, no. They're just doing enough to keep you believing that they are important. They're trying to become relevant again. As I just remembered I said that on a Twitter. I was just thinking they're trying to become relevant. For the first time they see it. Well, I tell you folks, when you see the conclusion, I was telling you they were telling us this back in the 70s. And everyone goes, yeah, well, that was when they started. Well, no, they actually had science back then about the direction this was going to go. And I don't know if you've noticed this last fall and this last spring, but it's kind of going in that direction. Not one to predict, but boy, it was pretty predictable. For the first time, a significant effect is apparent. You don't say. For the first time. This is after the hypothesis has been created. And as I look in and I saw Gary L. commenting about the electrical connection, the electrical induction, the electrical model of the universe that's not really agreed to. The variabilities on that. Again, we talked about that in the sun. There's a twin generator in the sun itself, which I liken to why we see waves on the surface. You're watching the interference patterns, and then that's interacting with outside energy waves. So you're watching a lot of interference patterns on this thing we see, the sun, the thing that's iridescent, irradiant to us is what we're seeing. Anyway, so we have that, and then we have the poles moving. I don't mean two poles. I mean they've split. There's actually the quad pole, and they're moving to a new place. So the poles have split, and what our compasses and stuff look at is the mean distance between the two relative to the north and south. All that's shifting. They say that they don't talk about that here, but their so-called elaborate model, see, I just hesitated on that. Their elaborate model hasn't been tested either here. I just want to continually point out, they're focusing now on reality, but they've got to legitimize their crime. And so they're tying it together. They expect, for the first time, a significant effect is apparent. They expect, these researchers now, they expect the Earth's temperature to fall by 0.5 degree when solar activity reaches its next minimum. It's still going down. It takes a long time for the minimum to happen. You go through and study all this. You hear about all the things. I told you they were telling us in the past that the temperatures were going to drop. And I also told you that if they already were going to do solar geoengineering, and they put these aerosols up, that they would hasten and deepen the weather that comes if it does go cold. Why? Because you put aerosols in reflective, the sun can't come in, the energy, I don't know that it's actually a thermal blanket, so it wouldn't capture anything that it did get through. It would still, it would irradiate out at night and you'd lose it, that they will deepen any cold that comes. And I said, if that's the case, and I think they know it, that it's a plan to kill y'all, just like they've been saying they want to do. A lot less of you to manage. So certainly you hear it all the time. The elderly and the babies die first. Get rid of it. When I say elderly, do you think of yourself as elderly? I guess maybe my listeners might on a couple of the stations. I'm finding out they're a little older than I was actually conceiving. They want you all dead. You're elder at 46. Just go read the notice. It was in the news years ago. The elder woman had something happen to her. Well, what's her age? 46 years old. Okay, so you're elder at 46. They want you to the little room with the pretty pictures by 46. 35, they illegalize you, so you start running until they catch you. Isn't that a movie? So they're actually projecting now the sun has impact. It's going to a minimum. It's going to bring on a cold by 0.5 degree. That's still not enough to hurt us. No reason to get panicked. But the point is, they're trying to legitimize themselves, and they're going to cost you more money from your life, more of your life that you go work to pay, because your energy costs will go up as they diminish the ability based on this fraud against you for all your other energy sources. While they destroy your dams, while they destroy your infrastructure for your mining, while they destroy your power plants, while they, and I don't, like I said, nuclear, I appreciate nuclear. It is a source, but we really have to focus on the handling of that, or get to a technology jump so that we can use the energy. We do need that. So we have a lot of answers. I think we need to, the politics causes us not to put energy into certain places. Right now the politics has been to promote this fraud. Well, this is a global, international imposition. The global order, remember. The governance goons. So this set of stories, they admit they're going to start the process on something they've already been doing. They show you the sun does exist now, and they're still attaching their fraud to it. And so now I'm just thinking, when you look up, see, they now declared, without their models being checked, even here, and without any other substantiation, they're telling us now the sun needs a chemical extinguisher, even though the science, even with their so-called new elaborate models, says we're going to go colder. Think about this. One hand is Harvard saying, oh, we're going to do these tests to make the solar shield. And this study comes and says if we're already going colder. This is all academia. You understand they play both sides of that coin. They can always fit themselves wherever you blink. That we are going to be, I'm just going to rename these so-called chemtrails to call them out for what they end up being, that we've been able to see, but I've been able to identify. I've given you I've given you a lot of evidence to be able to come to court, if you will, to put together even an administrative discussion, even a notice, a cease and desist to say stop doing that, and or you're going to go and join your processes based on this evidence that says you don't know what the heck you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. You're misappropriating public funds and private funds just to make your way in life instead of doing something right. And I'm going to enjoin that. You can set the record over all these years of talking. I've talked about this, that the evidence is out there, that other people have talked about it, that there's been more scientific tests that show about all this problem, that if you stay as crickets, they're going to spray you all. So what I look up now, instead of seeing chemtrails, and that word's been tainted anyway, with all this crime, I think you're seeing crime trails. The crime trails in your future are some scientist's idea that they needed an extinguisher to put out the sun. Think about that, folks. What else? Like I say, so now as I'm going through and thinking about the way they play the dual end of this, we get to a little report that came out back in 2016 showing that Donald Trump supported addressing climate change before calling it a hoax. And so, again, this guy that's in office didn't really look at the information before, and he was willing to act before he got information. Now, why he calls it a hoax, I don't know. Maybe he did some research, and then he did find that there was no substantiation for it. And so now he wants to act to stop. You saw him come out of the gate, stop the so-called climate change promotion. He didn't go enough. Our enforcement action letter back to him says that. And so we're hearing crickets on him right now. So this is going to be kind of interesting. We give him some time because there's a lot of business going on back there, I know. But now he was on board with the climate change, and then he called it a hoax. We don't really know why. We do know that he's willing to change based on information, but we don't know where that information's coming from. And we do know that he's put his administration in league with the bankers, and that is part of the governance that comes back again to tax you, that comes to take away more of your life. That if he's taking his lead from this now, and says it's a hoax, he's not going to be a player of one side. While his words say one thing, his actions will say another. And we may be seeing that in who he put in the EPA. What I found interesting is, as I've been telling you about the consensus program and processes and all this other stuff, and how this works out, someone else pops up, but it's more like a question to them. There's just, for the first time, seeing how this works. And I found the title pretty interesting. And the discussion was pretty good. And I've cited to his work before. Again, Charles U. Smith. He's got a blog page. And I said, maybe this guy doesn't quite understand what he's talking about. He sees stuff, he can't quite put his finger on it. And this is another one of those stories. He sees the problem. And I've never chatted with the gentleman, don't know anything about him, just see these titles come through and it interests me. But he makes this comment with this title, When the Solutions Become the Problems. Again, just the title, I can talk for quite a while. What have I said about the solutions network? It started by a contrived issue that the people who impose it don't have a right to impose. It's done with their outcome and their determination that they're going to plunder and infiltrate what they are focused on by this issue. Is called a solution, the outcome of which is through a consensus process. And there's other names for all this. It depends on who I'm talking to. I take a different set of facts to come to the same thing. Depends on where you originate from. They have quite a few names for how this. Why we, in our lawsuit in 2013, identified it in the complaint as a method of fulfilling another thing, which in part was sustainable development. So they make it nebulous enough, and so we had to write the complaint to be broad enough but constrained for purposes of an injunction. That was another part of the trick for those of you doing the more technical analysis of your complaints. This really is a big deal. I haven't figured out how to explain it. It's just something that I've learned that I've got to do. You have to make it broad enough but constrained, because the remedy of injunction is constrained, but it has to cover quite a large scope because they've affected every bit of your life. And so you have to go back to the least common denominator that actually, the pyramid's actually upside down. You have to find that point. If you don't find that point, you won't be as effective, or you will leave out some things and they'll be able to squirt out. But the solutions network is the problem. The EPA actually funds, the grant stream fundings actually go through their solutions network. That this Charles U. Smith says in his title, when the solutions become the problem. But when reading, he doesn't understand that's the plan. Not to diminish what he's saying. I appreciate anybody that starts to get this out. Not a lot of people listen to me. Apparently it has to be described by somebody else. And again, that is the reality. I have a lot of people that speak what I suggest to them to need as a subject matter, that speak it in their way, that seem to get a whole lot more traction than I seem to ever get. I'll just tell you, however it is I'm communicating, when it's used, it works out. The solutions become the problem is the point. It's the plan. He sees it. He doesn't understand the mechanism. Those benefiting from the destructive solutions may think the system can go on forever, but it cannot go on where every solution becomes a self-reinforcing problem that amplifies all other systemic problems, is what we sued in 2013. It becomes the treason. It becomes the dereliction of duty. It becomes the trespass. It becomes the felonies. The solutions are the problem. It became the Dakota Access Pipeline. It became the division I identified to you. It became my disappointment that nobody listened to what I was saying. The outcome was done. And it was a different way that the outcome was done. It was because they didn't bring what was available, required to bring. Like I said, the crickets are not just that you know something, it's how to properly apply that. Not applying it, not crawling under a rock and thinking you're getting away with something, but actually addressing it in a more proper way and having a bunch of witnesses on that. We are living, he writes, in an interesting but by no means unique dynamic in which the solutions to problems such as slow growth and inequality have become the problem. That's because they're the plan, folks. So I guess I can continue reading. I really don't want to. I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing. I'm actually encouraged that he's seeing it. He doesn't understand that it's the plan. I want you to know that. That's what all this climate change, carbon taxation, all the stuff that I'm showing you happen, the stakeholder, the stockholder, the stalking horse, the NGO, all this stuff, the exactions of every kind is even its own. I'm here to explain that to you all. I'm here to explain even to him what he sees. There's an actual thing that goes on. It's not just these guys making wrong decisions. Oh, they made a solution that became a problem. It's not unintended consequences either. Be careful of that one. That's another license to continue the crime against you. So a fascinating set of news again. Every week, I don't know, maybe it's just that you see, that if you start seeing this, it just becomes everything, you know, if I'm a hammer, it's a nail. Not all stories do this. So it's only certain ones I pull out that that explain a condition. It's comprehensive, it's knowable. You see it, but you can't put your thumb on it. I have my thumb on it, may be a part of it if it's not the entire thing. And I'm only talking from the solutions part, and that's not the only thing we're being troubled by. I mean, this monetary thing, this fiscal thing, is another trouble. But it has the same, they've learned how, folks, and you need to understand how they're taking you out, whether you want to or not. It's not my imposition. Behind the woodshed, we may be, you know, meting out the punishment a bit, but this is to our own good to understand this. He continually states about this exasperation of the solution becomes the problem. That is the plan. He goes off and talks about the debt, the borrowing from the future. The debt is a prime example. It's an example. That's actually a little different. But it's toward a plan, fulfillment of an outcome that's been set up by the very same system that he doesn't quite see. And I suspect you all don't either. You've heard it if you listen to me. You've heard me talk about it every week. It becomes the underlying foundation for the methodology that's used against us. It's to the point now I can almost not look anywhere and not see something that's part of it. And then what's interesting, I'm watching people picking up what's it called? They assimilate it, like by osmosis. You all start acting out because you think you have to meet this corruption to get along. It's the compromise. And this is my main problem in the mining, with the miners. They complain, you know, I've seen it a couple times. They talk about us not swerving from the law. We take that hard line. Yes, you have to, because to do otherwise, well, first of all, you have no authority to take other than the law, given the status that you're in and the status of the law for the land. There is no authority to question that, to take a soft step, to go off the narrow path of the law for its purpose. We don't have authority. But secondarily, maybe you don't also have the intelligence at some point. But who are you to take a lesser line, where compromise is your destruction? Is what I get blamed for us doing with Jefferson Mining District. I'm not the only one. We're just a cohesive district that we just don't put up with compromise. It says somewhere on the website, maybe about the district, we don't give them a miner's inch, and a miner's inch has to be a volume of water. We don't give anyone a miner's inch as they encroach. We don't give them an inch, folks, and neither should you. And the way you have to not give them the inch is to understand the inch they're going to take. And so we see this thing about Trump. He thought it was climate change, and then it was a hoax, but we don't know why. Then we see his actions, his words. You remember, you're knowing about your deeds, not what your words. He puts this guy named Pruitt into the EPA. And we get a little report all in the same general time here. Delling poll, Scott Pruitt is failing to drain the swamp at the EPA, which we start seeing is a failure of Trump generally. He didn't drain the swamp. And he's not really taking any actions to do that. And we understand, without getting too deep into it, it's still structured around the banking system, or the fiction system of fiscal policy and things like that. But Scott Pruitt, the head of Environmental Protection Agency, is more interested in building his political career than he is taken on the green blob. Pruitt is also said to be behind attempts to remove at least one of the key phrases in the president's long-awaited executive order on the environment. It concerns a proposal to repeal the EPA's endangerment finding on CO2, parenthetically, the disastrous, unscientific, job-killing ruling introduced during the Obama administration, which rebranded the harmless trace gas carbon dioxide as a dangerous substance. If Pruitt is successful and this clause is removed from the executive order, it will represent a major setback for President Trump's war with climate industrial complex. It may also put into jeopardy the promises Trump made on the campaign trail to scrap, quote, any regulation that is outdated, unnecessary, bad for workers, and contrary to the national interest. So our enforcement proceeding at this point with Trump is right on this point of failure. Not against Pruitt. We could care less of the officers. But why would he act to put somebody that is interested in his own political career, and they go and discuss that, than someone who would be functionally able to run forward is part of the problem of the compromise, not limiting the authority and being able to describe it. In other words, this has come out in a county that we helped, the commissioners of which we explained the law to. We had one of these green blobsters, the green religious faithful, show up to the commissioner meeting to impose upon a property owner's problem by saying, well, your decision has to be respectful of climate change. And the commissioner, after knowing the law, said, well, that law doesn't admit to climate change, and yet that is also not a settled science. And so we're here today to do the property problem, not some fictional idea. In the commissioner now saying that, instead of going, it wasn't even a fight, it was a position of fact in law and what the duty of the county was in the capacity that was sitting in the hearing, the public hearing, destroyed that ability to make an issue, a stakeholder out of that interferer, the trespasser on the point. And in fact, so effective is that simple little approach. The people who are the antagonists that would come to these meetings, I am told, I didn't see this myself, it's third-hand statement to me, and I accept it as the truth given the people I work with aren't lying to me, that those people got up and walked out. And so it's not, I just don't talk about this stuff. We work out how to defeat the green blob, the gangrene, as I believe I coined the phrase, that if I didn't, I've been using it long enough, I don't remember, but for so long. The gangrenous wound that McCain is in another way, is this thing that Trump put someone in place that is more interested in his ego and political posturing than it is the law or what it's supposed to do, or even to look at the lack of science, actually, as they move their agendas on. And these, again, it's not that I don't like a nice environment, it's that what they've done with it is it's an excuse to interfere. It's become a solution that creates a problem. And that ends up imposing itself on your life. Remember, they just talked about carbon. Carbon tax is the market they said they destroyed, but they didn't. It's a lie. It continued. It's like the Jesuits. They just, we outlawed the Jesuits. You think they go away. And 500 years later, they pop up and they take over the world. And remember, the Pope is in on this, so I don't know where the end goes. And it looks like, if the report was correct, there's not not anybody in the administration that isn't a Jesuit. And so I have to put that category of possibility going as well. It's all a promotion. So part of this process about how they do all this is the collaborators. The solutions network, the consensus process, all this is done through collaboration. And a bunch of other terms, partnerships, teamwork, all this warm and fuzzy stuff. So everyone wants to get along, and the compromise is to work and collaborate. Well, collaborators, like in Nazi, like the wartime, was a pretty nasty thing. And I'm going to tell you that it comes on the same way. These are collaborators to destroy you. They really are collaborators that are the enemy. And so I was looking through things and found this thing called collaborative justice. And to show you how consistent this is what who collaborates in criminal justice. And I'm going to make emphasis on the criminal. This is criminal justice. And you see the same definition for stakeholders that are gangrene, the green blob, the green religion, how they've done this, the method. You see the words right in this definition. Who collaborates in criminal justice? If you're a collaborator, you're an enemy. It's pretty simple. Because your definition has a special place, it's not law, it's non-constitutional, it's a foreign imposition. Collaborative justice Now, what happened to criminal justice? We'll see how they do this. Collaborative justice seeks to overcome the limitations in traditional approaches to criminal justice issues, criminal justice issues. So this is now policy concerns again on something that we know is criminal. Criminal justice is an oxymoron in almost everywhere now, it seems, in particular that the bar is running, and then their partners. All just corporations, remember. Not even getting into the state being one and how and what capacity. Criminal justice issues by bringing together teams of stakeholders to share information. Remember the process. They do their data collection, and then they get amongst themselves, and they share information to become more effective, and they do the multiple disciplinary approach to how they're going to resolve the problem. The problems are your resistance to what they're doing, and they're working to defeat you. They work toward the development of common goals and jointly create policies to support those goals. I just read that right off, and I just explained it. It's so predictable what they're doing here, and they describe it by their own definition. Stakeholders are defined as those who have the power to influence the outcome of the problem at hand and have the demonstrated investment in doing so. Your buy-in, your participation, the problem is you when they're trying to come and take your stuff, and the outcome they want is all in that. And your demonstration of being able to affect that investment is what advisory councils are all about. In the process, if you don't agree to the outcome, you've demonstrated your investment in that outcome. You will not be listened to or be made a part of that process. Then we have the next paragraph that explains a whole lot here that misses people. We always think in the better. I do. I think in the better side, and I forget that maybe there's someone that doesn't, maybe has some ill intent. I've had to learn that this is these people, that they mean everybody ill intent. This is a process of deception. Here's the next paragraph, and it starts off by saying, ideally, comma, I make the point, ideally, comma, teams should be comprised of the criminal justice agencies and community organizations that impact or are impacted by decisions that will be made by the collaborative team. So we're all going to get together as a big gang, and ideally we want all those that you think are involved, the community organizers that impact or are impacted by, to get together. Does that mean you? Do they care about you? Did you hear you in there? No. That's the ideal sense they'll do this. It doesn't mean that they're going to commit to the ideal sense. So they have these conditional words in all their discussions. So collaborative justice is felony, where it starts to interfere with your rights, remedies, properties, and all this other stuff. Collaborative justice has to be tied to the government. That's where the Justice Department is, if you will. It proves what our lawsuit said, that these people are criminals. They don't care about you. They care about their teams and how they're going to get their outcome. Further down in the paragraph, it says teams should think critically about their membership and include individuals with the power to create change within their own agencies and organizations, or become, quote, agents of change within their communities. Remember when I talked about the stakeholder stalking horse, the owner of the company drops his morals at the door when he has to take this on. And those that can advance and promote that method are the ones that you place out there to do so. It's written right in here about that document I talked about so long ago. Representation by court community. Oh, now we find out it's not just community, court community. And criminal justice professionals is critical to the effectiveness of the criminal justice collaboration. And they name a list of all the insiders that are sitting there in the capacity of plunder to continue transparent to you. That's their problem, keeping this plunder transparent to you. And they're going to get together and they're going to solve it. They're going to resolve what looks like government to be this corporate governance imposition, where their people are the only ones that work on the problem, to look at what you've got and how best are we going to take it. This is where you start getting the ideas of mental holds, and everybody then they pass the laws for Deweys with driving under the influence, and all the classes you're going to take, and it's those community participants. That's all the grant stream funding that's put through this to make all these little services they pop up just to help you out. They're all part of how are they going to promote the organized criminal syndicate. That's collaborative justice. That's the stuff they use in how they impose and justify they're doing collaborative justice to you. How warm and fuzzy is that? Well, there's so many people involved bringing justice. Couldn't be further from the truth. Because this kind of thing is what brought on the climate change. It brings on the inability to identify. You can see it, but can't put your thumb on it. That in my studies, I've been able to put my thumb all over it. Again, there's many dimensions, many facets to the takedown. So it's not all of them. But once you see this, you can start applying it to lots of others. Again, as I think about this, I really can't understand at some point. We see all these documentaries. How much are we going to need to know about more of the past that we aren't already being beaten down by the future they want? And not respond to it is really quite amazing to me. People are amazed, just amazed. Oh, look at all this well put together information, and yet it really doesn't give you any insight. In fact, if you know what you're listening for, you listen closely, you see that there's the people who put together the documentaries don't understand this process either. Otherwise, they certainly would at least make a mention. And so this information means nothing to all of us. The knowledge of what you hear as information may not even matter and be irrelevant. And a lot of times that's what I hear, because we can't attach to the people that are doing it. We have to affect the method by which they do it. Doesn't matter. I don't care about who you are. I don't care about what you think about what your status is or what you claim. I don't care what stripe you think you wear. I want to know what you're doing. And that, to me, just eliminates, to me, there's no argument, and that's why I tell you that. There's no argument. If they're violating you, they're doing it without right. And if you can identify what that is, it's that simple. They're a felon if they're doing it as they're a color of some authority. I keep telling you that. And so the other thing that happened in I think it was in the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is the process and the method, which correlate pretty well, is this data acquisition. They have to know about you in order to undermine you. And, they got a lot of people working on this. In fact, it becomes almost the entirety of the government. Those that need to know, and those that don't, just shove everything underneath I'm not authorized. And it makes it very difficult to get at. This data acquisition, again, in this week, has been upped even more. And for those, again, I apologize for those that keep up on the news and know this stuff. I'm not talking about the news or what you think is the notice to us. I'm trying to look at this again, and I got to tell people, because it's something that comes to my mind to explain how we're being done and what things we may have to do to counter it. While, again, I'm only talking to people that are involved. I'm not talking to anybody that's not. I don't know what else to say about that. And when I say that, I already know that there's only really a few. And if I've got a misperception on that, I'm certainly not getting the emails to chastise me that I'm wrong. We tend to want to listen to a lot of information and not put it into a context or sense of it and then apply it. Yet the other side's doing that all the time. They're gathering information, this data, this big data stuff. We're told all about this stuff. We've been told now that they're going to get more information to figure out more about you, and to start. They look at you as the human herd. They're going to start using this information to cut you out, cull you, or control you. That this week, And I was waiting for this thing to come up as a story so I could use the term because I have another view on this. But with the Senate, I think it was, just allowed the ISPs to take your data right from the ISP. And so there's been some discussion about VPNs and all these and HTTPS or something only or everywhere to protect you. But this is I want to show you the system why they're doing this is because they need more data. They always need more data because they use that data to then to evaluate, and from the evaluation then they then create more plans in order to how to subvert you. It's really a simple, it's a 4-step process. It can be quite involved, but it's really simple when you start to see they're doing parts of it. But then finally, through that Senate giving away all your private data that can be sold, and really I think only the 4 major ISPs, the backbone internet companies are the ones that ultimately make the killing on this. And they're also tied in with the NSA. That finally someone came up with the phrase, the term. I was wondering why it hadn't come up, but the title here is Big Brother to Spy on Our Internet History and ISP Address Without a Warrant. As the Senate votes to let ISPs sell, it's all commerce, it's the bottom line, to sell all that information. So what I wanted to point out, because it came up with the term, I've been waiting for this for a while. I'm surprised it took so many days for someone to come up with the title of Big Brother. I haven't heard that term now for quite a long time. Maybe I just haven't been looking. But it finally popped up that I wanted to point out something. The Big Brother to spy on you. It's like this, going back to the solutions being the problem. We put Big Brother in there. Everybody knows Big Brother. It seems to be the promoted thing. But when we look at the context of what government ends up doing, partly because we're not engaged to arrest its excesses. We're not actually dealing with Big Brother. We're actually, and you see this reflected in is being the proxy mercenary fighter for U.S. policy in the Middle East, or any of the other Nusras and Talibans and all these other things that are the straw man, the straw idea, which are supported and stuffed full of this straw that make them look like something that is actually the setup for the takedown. That you focus too hard on that. In other words, is us. As I said this long time ago, that's a proxy. They're using is to advance the Israel-United States agenda to reconstruct the Middle East on multiple levels over there. That I wanted to show you that the government's already working in proxy mode. We talk about proxies on computers, so they kind of hide you from doing something. Well, the government's always been doing that. That's what you might call the false flag is part of those. That Big Brother, I've been thinking, is a straw man. Because being the government acts like proxy, what we're actually dealing with, when you see all the harm, it's not the war on drugs, it's the war of drugs. It's not the war on terror, it's the war of terror that the government uses against us, that we are crickets to. We'll talk about it and yak about it, and we can see that it's a problem, it needs to go away, but we never pull together to resolve it. The Big Brother to spy, it's really not Big Brother when it's acting by these proxies. To me, that's been a lie. That's been a setup, like a Big Brother, someone you look up to, at least when I was growing up. You always looked up to your Big Brother kind of thing. That's how they get us. This is actually Big Mother. Not Big Brother. It's Big Mother by proxy. I want to call your attention now, because of the harm it does through this proxies, I've talked about it before, but this is refined to politics. That's the political Munchausen syndrome. Where you don't have Big Brother, you have Big Mother. That harms the victims and takes credit for the fact that notices that everyone is being harmed. And continues the abuse. You're watching not Big Brother. And if we get this corrected in our perception, I think we'll start to see what the dynamic is and why it is the government hurts you, and why the methods that I keep talking to you that get us there are the ones that start looking like the problems. That get what? They get exalted. Climate change now is being adulterated to actually include the sun. All of a sudden now it becomes valid. I don't know if you appreciate that position. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, I've talked a little bit about this before, just bring it up as a memory aid, a reminder, is a term often used when a caregiver or spouse fabricates, exaggerates, or induces mental or physical health problems in those who are in their care with the primary motive of gaining attention or sympathy from others. Apply this to the United States government and all that's going on right now and the victimization of everybody and everything. Just 'cause. Not just cause, just 'cause the United States government is the new, it's the Genghis, the modern Genghis Khan and its horde. It's the biggest bully and brute. And by that definition, it is a stakeholder because it can affect you. That is not Big Brother. That's Big Mother by proxy. Its name is derived from the term Munchausen syndrome, a psychiatric factitious disorder, not fictitious, factitious disorder, wherein those affected feign disease, illness, or psychological trauma to draw attention, sympathy, or reassurance to themselves. Won't go through this, just a wiki definition. The point is you're not dealing with Big Brother. You're dealing with Big Mother by proxy, taking you down and taking credit for it. It's exactly what's going on with climate change. It's exactly how they're continuing to make themselves relevant. It's exactly how they're doing the monetary system, the fiscal policy. It's exactly how they do is us and is and all that stuff. And we sit completely, apparently oblivious to it. We're dealing with a mental case in the government. It is a mental case. And the only thing I can figure is that we've been hacked and we are thinking, if we have a thought to have, through our own mental malware. It's up to us to stop, to put the firewalls up, to do the things it takes to take back possession of what we thought was ours. When we find out it's being controlled and we're no longer in that control due to our own false or negative fallen nature. This is reflected in almost throughout life. So as long as we're not taking responsibility, we're subject to that whom has set up the system that we have plugged ourselves into and remain crickets to, quiet to, apathetic, slovenly to. Whatever word you want to come up to, inactive. And so people resist. So it's not outside of our nature to do that. And we all know we resist, even in our thoughts. Oh, I reject this is a good start. But the limit of that statement and then yakking about it's not enough. You have to start doing something. So this kind of reflected itself a couple weeks ago. This mental malware, hacking, the hacking of the firmware and all this other thing. And then this idea we heard a long time ago, and I said I was interested to hear that GM was taking possession of the software that runs the computers and saying you can't touch that. Well, that's not actually patent law. I want to give you a little bit of insight there. Patent law only doesn't say you can't mess with it. It says you can't make it and sell it, make their stuff and sell it as yours. That's all patent law protects. Now, they'll have 1,000 lawyers that'll come on you and try and make it look like you're doing that. But if you're just using your own stuff and you're messing with what they do and not reselling it, in other words, if I had all the plans to a particular product that was patented, and I had the machinery and I made it, identical, perfectly identical, I could not, and I used it, and then let's just say I used it up and I destroyed it. And in the meantime, someone found out from the company that I was using the device that they patented, that I was making it, but I made my own. I didn't buy it, and I didn't sell it, I didn't lease it, I constrained control to myself for my purpose. That is not a patent infringement. So I was questioning early on how GM can make the computer software, their stuff, you can't touch it, so that you are forced to go to their, you are now a slave to their mechanical system. That these firmware, this Internet of Things, this big data, silent weapons for quiet wars system has been developing around us, and we will resist it, as we find in some examples here. And why I say, well, if there's some example for people resisting, that is something we have to do everywhere, not just here, But you also notice it's only doing it where these people are affected in their life. That's why I say you have to find the wrong you need to make right. I can tell you, I suggest where to go, but it's not going to fly. I already know that. You're already going to be a lot apathetic on what you have to do. I am. There's lots of stuff I don't want to do. So, why American farmers are hacking their tractors with Ukrainian firmware was a story that hit. Again, there's a black market, I guess, for everything. To me, it's something gaining control. Remember, possession is your ability to control. If you have no control, you don't have possession. And so that's a pretty simple definition. That the farmers, again, remember, these are the producers, are being taken advantage of by a company called John Deere for their tractors. They have done exactly this. They've made computer impositions that require that the machine will not run, even if you repair it, it will not run unless you go to John Deere and have their technician put their machine on it and do their little magic and release it, even in the minimum. But that's not what it's for. They are attempting to control any so-called unauthorized repair. This is where you start getting the point. Well, now the companies, the corporations are doing this. You have to have legislation to not have this happen. Anyway, so you can go, if you're a John Deere owner and you want to go and get control, some Ukraine software people are cracking these firmware for their tractors, and they're able to then get the things fixed a lot cheaper to continue. Again, their production is not plundered by the organized monopolies, even down to the producer. Now, the problem I would see this digital world somehow gave license to this complete control, even though they said they sold it to you. I'd like to know how did they actually sell it to you, this tractor, and why anybody buys a tractor that's not free and clear, and why the companies are allowed to violate or extend the patent law beyond its own capacity. And before I forget, I've been forgetting, just a quick program note. I don't know yet, for those that just listening that I won't know this because you only get the broadcast and don't find me in chat somewhere. There's going to be, and I don't know when and how long it's going to take. There may be a weekend, and it could be as far out as 2 months from now, that I may not be able to do a broadcast because what I need to get done, we're going to have some improvements hopefully behind the woodshed. What I'm going to get done may take me through the weekend to do. So there may be only one weekend. I just need to let you know so that in case it comes up and you hear, you finally, maybe 1 week now, you hear a replay. It just took too long. It took longer than I could get done. So not this week and not next week, and it may not be up until as far away as 2 months. But just want to let you know. I'll be talking to the network people to let you know. I think it'll just be maybe Grimner will just load a file, and it'll play the regular time. It'll just be a past cast for that week, and then hopefully everything will be back to normal. Hopefully I can avoid it, but I wanted to make sure I get everyone's knowledge so that you don't think I fell off the face of the earth when that happens. So back to it. Digital world, digital life, digital phones. Remember, they give you this device they call the iPhone. We found it's all hackable. I told you before, we found out from the Wiki Vault 7, if it's rootable, it's hackable. Someone's got this owned. It's why I dislike Google. It's why they got their fingers in everywhere. We don't know the programming. I don't know how we're going to really escape it. The VPNs might be a way, but they're hackable as well at some level. So anyway, we have to learn to do what we can do. I understand there was some discussion about doing VPNs. I think Sock Puppet in RLM chat was saying, well, we can have or Grimner was saying, maybe on Freaker's Ball was saying, we can get together and set up these things. And what they are is a device that you work through instead of using your own identity, your ISP. You can go through a different one. And so there's going to be some technology you can use. Sounds like that some people may be stepping up to help fix this problem that the government and corporations lock us into. They give us our place, and they make it very difficult in order for us to escape. But there's a will to escape. So it's not evasion, it's avoidance. And so we do that, and we're going to have to do that. A lot of people don't care. A lot of people just write it off. I don't say nothing. Again, more and more stories are coming out. And I don't know if I'm going to get to it on this one. They fabricate this stuff around you. So you want to give them as little as possible. But they're being plugged in and not knowing the proper arguments, delaying on the things that I say you need to make a record for, to show your distinctions between commerce and your rights. As I tell you, the highway, how to there's I think I put them in the UCY chat. 2 questions. First, it's not at the end of the questions, but 2 questions. I don't remember now what they are. Has to do with finding out where this authority for your right went. How did the people that are imposing upon it have a lawful right to take it away? And you find out pretty quickly they didn't have it, but you make the record first. You don't go to, as someone said in the UCY chat, you're trying to tell them while they're beating you up and arresting you. No. You're supposed to get this squared away on the record long before you get there. But if you don't, they put you into new systems. And those of us that are getting older aren't going to be, our generations are done. I mean, they're just going to wait us out, and the ones coming up won't have a clue different. So you're going to only protecting them if you continue to help. But here's what's coming. All this digital data, we're going to collect up everything in your life on top of the exposure that you have through your devices and your phones and whatever else, your laptop, all of it now, folks, even the new computers. Like I said last week on one of the listing for the Blogcaster and the Twitters, what's inside, they tell you right on the outer case of one of the products, one of the manufacturers, they say, what's inside? They say Intel. They've been telling us there's been Intel inside our machines for as long as I remember the promotion. Intel is inside, folks. We're just finally coming to the fact. This is going to be the have to have, as long as you don't have the words in your mouth to try and show and prove a distinction, and we don't come in numbers great enough, everybody's going to be locked into this control. You're going to see the sci-fi movies of the future, of the past coming to the future, and we hear now coming your digitized life. This is the same problem like the Bitcoin. It's the same problem with any digital accounts, any of that, folks. But now they're pointing out that I think they're testing it now in Europe. Digital driver's licenses on your phone by 2018 as virtual reality tests explored to keep up with technology. What a mouthful of nonsense, but this is where virtual reality tests, they're putting your license on your phone. Now remember, let's anticipate they've already got supposedly the right to get your phone. The Supreme Court said, well, that's a violation of your Fourth Amendment because there's so much that it's on your phone. They're telling you it's coming. Everything's on your phone, and you're going to have a phone. I suspect that the technology of the phones is going to reduce in size, only limited by so-called human ergonomics, or the need of the government, which doesn't need ergonomics. It just needs to have you have that card in your pocket that will have all this capacity. It'll have a camera on it. It'll have the microphone they need. It'll have all your papers. You won't be handing them papers when they demand your papers. You're going to be handing them your phone. You're going to be handing maybe a little card that works like your phone. Your phone's going to be reduced down to a credit card. It'll do everything that they need to have it do, and you'll have all your life in this phone completely hackable if you don't start to resist. Driver's licenses on the phone. In the face of the fraud that says that there was like as I said in UCY, Ron Stephen was talking about the highway. When the king granted the highway, who are these people to interfere with my right to use it? This is such long international law about the common highway and its right to be used. It's pathetic that it continues to be a question. That they're going to get you in this commerce product called a phone. They're going to get your commerce ID and your commerce accounts all under one device that it'll be the millstone in your pocket. And we said don't put a millstone around our neck. We're going to stick it in our pocket. They're going to make it so convenient. So here's the notice. So here's a little prototype of something we're working on. Driver's license, it's on your phone. Okay? Your whole digital life right there. And it's subject to this hacking, and it's subject to these changes. It's subject to being turned off. It's subject to sale. It's subject, more importantly, to manipulation by those that are big mother by proxy. Not big brother. That was to make us feel warm and fuzzy. So tools have to happen. Whether or not they're enough, I don't know. When they get it, I told you, when they got into the hardware, firmware is the second hardest. That's still software, but for hardware. Hardware program, hardwired controls inside a chip is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be completely defeatable. I think it's not defeatable. So when they start to get to that level, where they, see right now they need the software, so they need the computers to run it. When it's hardwired, it's in the chip. They don't need any software. It runs. It's run because it's built that way. That's what I used to do. Long time ago, though, so it wasn't quite so small even. But we used to program in. It's like when they made a speech chip. And to this day, I haven't heard a chip that does the work that the chip did that we were working on in our lab, the research and development lab. It doesn't run by software. The software is converted to transistor logic on the chip itself, so it runs at the speed of the chip without having to access coding. It runs by the logic. It was doing digital logic. It just runs the digital logic that you literally physically put right where it is on the chip. I don't know if there's a way to interfere with that. So that's when they get everything really, that's how they get something really, really small. I don't need any processing. It's built, all the processing is built in the logic of the chip itself. Pretty fascinating stuff. And then they got quantum nano smaller than what I've ever used. And so we're coming to a time when these devices are becoming, we can't reverse hack them like they might be able to, like the American farmers having to go to the Ukraine of all places in order to get their software, firmware, rewritable. So we have to watch a little bit of that. We have a product, a statement about protecting our money and how it's an example of how this is infiltratable. In other words, if you're on your phone and you go to a website and you're going to make a payment, or somebody sends you an email and you see some link to go make a payment, we are deceived. Again, this ergonomics that we need is exploited. Our fallen nature to this, our apathy to be aware, and then what's the limit of awareness somehow? How vulnerable we could be. Was exemplified in another story here about the danger of putting all our stuff in these so-called phones. In one story that was showing us that let me just read the parts of it, set it up, it had to do with PayPal. One unfortunate, albeit entirely predictable consequence of making HTTPS certificates, quote, fast, open, automated, and free, is that both good guys and bad guys alike will take advantage of the offer and obtain HTTPS certificates for their websites. Now, the HTTPS is for this security. It encodes your communication, so it's kind of sealed in a communication stream that's encoded. That's supposed to be protective, but the certificates they use to keep you safe, if you will, and understand who you're dealing with are given as an open offering. Now, apparently the open offering is not really the problem, it's how they're used. But an example came through, and you had to be very observant to see the distinction of a PayPal login utilizing a certificate that would put up, when you're securely connected, the little lock comes up in the address bar. This is how sophisticated this is coming. The little lock shows up in the address bar, which says that it's a secure connection. And in fact, it's not secure to the place you thought it was, but to the people that have gotten a certificate that called themselves PayPal. That I throw this in to show you that we're subject to the foibles of lots of things. not the least of which is our lack of knowledge of the technology. But even the stuff that's given to us, that they show us how simple the deception can be, how almost perfect, but that's the other thing, but it's almost perfect, and you have to find the almost part, is exemplified in this little story I wanted to give you in the Blogcaster. And I don't know if I should want to give away the punchline. I really think you need to see how subtle this is. I was able to figure it out when I looked at it, but it is subtle. I mean, it's I guess I work this for myself. I mean, I'm looking all over the pages. I'm looking for any detail a lot of times anyway when I'm asked to go to a link. I usually don't go there. I actually search the link before I even go. I look at a lot of things. When I get a link, I'm not just letting click. I make sure I understand where that, or I ascertain. If I can't ascertain where it's actually going, or if it looks kind of funny, if it looks fishy, I kick it. So I'm looking at this, and I think I'm not going to explain it. This is so subtle. You get the little green lock. It says PayPal. You can't tell the difference between the text. So how do you know that you're not in an insecure condition in your money? Is a little lesson right here that I'm not so sure people are really that integrated with being that aware. That you need to be. I'm not saying you're not and you can't. I'm saying you need to be aware. I guess the first rule is get your protections up. Go to HTTPS everywhere. Put that as a plugin on your browsers. But look at everything you do. One of the techniques I've used, I literally copy the link. I put it in a search engine. I use DuckDuckGo or Start Page, or anybody. It depends. I may use others to start with. And I use DuckDuckGo, and I just search for that, and then you start looking at where that is, and I may do some who is searching, all kinds of things before, and this is from some people that I know. Why? Because I've had plenty of people send me emails, didn't know their account was hacked, and so it takes them quite a while sometimes to get links. I just don't click on them, but you see how subtle the attack can be. I hope you gain an appreciation for becoming more aware and being very careful on what you can do that comes to you, let alone what's behind the scenes. And what is behind the scenes? The expose now. We're being told of all these things. And part of me, there's a little thing in my mind that says this is a setup too, but let's go with it for the sake of understanding. That we are hackable. Silent weapons for quiet wars, the Internet of Things, we are hackable. And the WikiLeaks came out. What is this stuff? What is the abilities that they have? What to hack our lives, whether it's like climate change and commingling a lie, a fraud with reality now, as I told you they would have to do, and it was going to come to the end. They did. Now we're seeing it where they do all these comminglings of the issue that is fabricated from these foreign ideas, whether we identify them as the green blob, gangrene, fiscal bankers, banksters, whatever. They bring a falsity to your reality. We have to be able to see it. They make it so difficult. Yet we now find out if they can hack you before you got there, you can't tell. As WikiLeaks reveals, this thing called Marble was proof CIA disguises their hacks as Russian, Chinese, Arabic, and I'm going to say, I think it says North Korean. Remember, they were talking about North Korea hacking something here earlier, a couple of years ago. Now we find out that the CIA has a way to get inside the malware to make it look like another, someone else did the hack. Not only a place, they can actually target, and this is what I was told you about being concerned about, they can target people. They can make evidence that make it look like people did this in a specific malware. And so the Vault 7 is exposing this capacity in the United States government. Here we have again, they're the big mother, not the big brother. They're the big mother by proxy. They can make this look like anybody did it. And so right here we have the evidence of at least a major doubt that anything is being said correctly in media or the government. I told you when this was exposed on another thing here earlier on, and it wasn't even the vault stuff. I can't remember the thing before that. So this exposes that there can be no truth that you can know without a much deeper, and they're not saying that there's a deeper way to analyze it. The surface of this is that you can't tell. Now, I have some questions, but I'm not that that savvy to even or have the time or a desire to go look deeper. There may be some linguistic things you can check, but it's going to come to that detail. This is beyond your perception. This is people this is after you've been hacked. This is what makes the hack work against you, the malware work against you. These are people that look at that to see if they can protect themselves. And these are the people that the CrowdStrike was looking at, They were looking through this problem and didn't know it existed. This is like as blind as the climate change people, IPCC, intentionally not looking at the sun. Or putting on the dark glasses so dark they didn't have to look at it. It's similar in its approach. It ends up having the same outcome, but you purposely don't see, or you have no knowledge to see. CrowdStrike revises and retracts part of explosive Russian hacking report. We can go through that, but what they've essentially done, they commingled their problem with that. They got outed. This is the company that Comey agreed on third-party forensic to go to. If you don't understand what I'm telling you about, your digital life can be made up. You can be named, and if they want you, you will be named. And there's not going to be a bunch of evidence to prove to the contrary. Now, I say that, I know the fear. Am I fear-mongering? No, I'm saying there's a reality. You're going to have to come to terms with that. Maybe nothing will ever happen. Maybe you'll never become important enough. Maybe that's why I'm still talking to you. I'm just not important enough. They know no one listens to me, present company excluded, listens to me anyway. What happens the day that I get listened to? Does that keep you from becoming active, or does it shut me up? I guess that's up to you or me. I don't know that it can shut me up, but I'm saying that, as I learned early, they make up what they need. This is showing you that your digital life will be whatever they want it to be, and they have the tools to do it. They have the tools to make it, the finger go to someplace else. You'll never know who done it. This now brings again, wherever anybody says they have an authority, you now see that given they don't know what they don't know, and that ignorance can say, let's say, I don't have a neutral feeling about Russia. They said Russia done it, Putin done everything. Doesn't matter, Putin did it. Putin could not want to do it, and he done it. Putin did it. This is how this is. This is where they've been focusing. Forget Russia. This could be you. This could be some local politician, some local cop doesn't like you. They get together and they don't like you, and they make it look like something. So WikiLeaks is putting out all this. You don't think it's going to happen? WikiLeaks is putting the source code. They say to certain people, do you don't think that all this stuff is hackable? That this knowledge is going to become a little more universal? That it could be done to you? You think the government people are not going to have this stuff? Take this seriously. And that's why I say we have a very short time of being able to be active without having to also be running cover for to be careful on what we're doing. It's very close, folks. I don't know really more to say, but that it's encouraging that people resist. That's the point. It's the resistance. I'm asking us to resist in better ways. I don't know how much different you could do as a farmer, though, hacking your own stuff. That you have to, folks. Think about that. You even have to. And who is this guy Comey? He's part of the thing, part of the system, part of the hack, part of working all these tools. And what's his new bright idea? Again, remember, this is all solutions to a non-problem. They've created their own. This is the walking wounded. This is the wound they keep making, that we have to start becoming. It becomes important in our life just because it affects us. That's the stakeholder. That's a criminal. I went through that. Now Comey's going to have a new idea. It's just a perpetuation. Now he's asking, again, this is an officer in the United States government for a particular investigatory body making the suggestion for an international encryption backdoor partnership. What have I told you about partnerships? Teamwork, consensus, collaborators. These are felons in the position of government offices. They are committing treason when they went after you or made it possible to come after you. And they don't have a warrant. It's just cause. Why? Because they said back in 2012 or maybe before 2010 that they were throwing out international law. There is no judiciary. They went extrajudicial. And no one has stopped them. No one's even started to stop them. We're going to get our... Again, Trump's going to show himself to us on proof by evidence that he is who I think he might be. Or we're going to go after this stuff. We got a foot in the door as hard as they're trying to keep it shut. Will it happen before in my lifetime with the record we have? I don't know. I don't have the date. I'm out of here. But now Comey wants an international encryption backdoor partnership. That's the collaborators for the crime against you. That's them that can hide themselves from the harm they do to you. FBI Director James Comey is still pitching encryption backdoors despite there being almost no one from the intelligence community to legislature around the world interested in what he's selling. I'll stop there. This is what this guy comes up with. It's not good enough just to do the investigation on crime that he can find. He's going to continue the one he's doing and aid others in doing that. Some of the others might be, and this is an updated story, but it did come out that Verizon software on Android phones was going to start collecting all kinds of data. This was the article from EFF.org. They ostensibly tell us they're protecting us. Some of it looks okay, some I'm not so sure, but it doesn't matter. They're giving us notice that they have a whole story now that's all lined out, because when they wrote about it, it says within days of Congress repealing online privacy protections, Verizon has announced new plans to install software on customers' devices to track what apps customers have downloaded. With this spyware, Verizon will be able to sell ads to you across the internet based on things like which bank you use and whether you've downloaded a fertility app and whatever, whatnot. Stop reading. Verizon responded that it's not exactly like that. That as we said earlier this week, we are testing an app flash to make app discovery better for consumers. The test is on a single phone, the LG K20V, and you have to opt in to use the app, or you can easily disable the app. Nobody is required to use it. Verizon is committed to your privacy. And view our privacy policy. Well, you read inside there, they can say all kinds of stuff. There's all these outwords. The bottom line is that they're already encroaching. They'll call it this thing. Maybe they're only doing app discovery to make it easier. They're sensitive to the problem. The point is they can still give you they can update your software in order for them to allow you to opt in. And I've told you, if they can make an opt-in, what makes you know that it is opt-in? We're finding a lot of things in Windows, there's almost no way to get out of stuff. So right on the heels of that vote from the Senate to go sell your stuff, your information, Verizon comes out right after that with this new Discovery app. We don't know which way that'll work. They're claiming right now it's to aid the benefit of the consumer. Consume, folks. Keep consuming. Keep drinking it up. So what's some of the stopping of this? Well, to some extent. At least you'd have protections at some level. I guess you'd have remedies, I would say better. We just need remedies, really. You don't need the government stepping in our face. We just need remedies against the violation. Minnesota Senate votes 58-9 to pass internet privacy protections in response to our repeal of SEC privacy rules. So where the federal government doesn't regulate, the states can. And this is in commerce. Remember, this is in commerce as well, right? This is not your phone. This is their system. They're going to hack it. They have the right to hack it now. They have the right to make money off their hack, even though you pay the money. And it's increasing. So the state now comes up with its own internet privacy protections, and being that the FCC repeals the rule, that means the FCC is not in the place to make the rule. The state is now free to make the rule. So I've been asking you all to go local, understand your local processes, And these are the kinds of things you need to start putting in. I've asked you to make a list of all the things that you're seeing as an encroachment by government, and go find a politician, go do what you have to do to persuade them, to get them to persuade the rest, the people. The whole people is them, not you. You're just the victim of it all. You're the human, the beast of burden on this. You go persuade them to get in the bills that stop the nonsense that's being allowed. That you have to do locally. I don't have another answer for that. So we have an answer. We can work towards something. These bills are possible to get through. You're hearing them all the time. There's one right here in Minnesota. You can take that as a model. I look at it real carefully, but your local government can stop the things. All right. So, or you can encourage certain things. Now we're also explaining how this all works with the FBI, and now what you have to do against the federal government and their multiple agencies, and how they finagle this, and you still have a say at the state level. Something's working in the Constitution, but it has to be worked by the way it's supposed to work, not the way you make it up. That we now hear, again, another outing, how the FBI played a central role in the first ISIS attack on U.S. soil. Investigation finds the undercover agent encouraged a shooter in Garland to tear up Texas. It gets worse. You can read the article. Just want to point out here, again, this is instigated by this is the war of terror. They make up stuff. They encourage you to do the wrong things, and they get the dumbest people to go along with it. And I think that, that's going to probably be on purpose. They're just people that aren't capable, and they take advantage. And the government, this is supposed to be an investigatory body. They're involved with perpetrating the crimes. If they're already showing you they're involved with perpetrating the crimes in front of your face, what do you think they're doing behind the scenes with this marble? The magic marble. It's some esoteric movie. So we find out that the FBI uses, again, its influence on someone to make it look like ISIS was an attack. It's just a reflection of the continuing problem. The same thing I said, ISIS is a proxy. It's not Big Brother, it's Big Mother. McCain is furious at Rex Tillerson for saying Assad couldn't stay. What? ISIS didn't work? The false flag, the proxy didn't work? The gangrenous walking wound in McCain is furious at Rex Tillerson saying that Assad can stay? What have we been over there for, folks? What was this all about? What do all those people die for? Why didn't we just leave them alone? Who the heck are we as a nation? And it's not us, folks. It's the United States psychopaths in D.C. And I want to caution you. Be careful of what they say outwardly. We can't trust anymore. The trust is broken, folks. So that's another statement you have to make. The trust is breached and broken forever in these people. Don't believe for 1 second they're actually saying Assad can stay. They lost. The United States just lost another war it started for no good reason. Killed a lot of people trying to oppress the Israel agenda and whatever it seems to want to do, and it just cuz. And McCain's furious that they're going to not go after Assad anymore, even though the writing's on the wall that they really can't. So McCain is this really horrendous guy. Rex Tillerson, I don't know whether or not, I don't trust that. I hope they leave him alone. What were we doing over there anyway? But the agenda continues. Be careful of the dynamic that's continued over there. It's here, folks. They're doing the deceptions here and there and hacking your life. And you have to protect against that. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope something I said will help you. And Grimner, thank you for reallibertymedia.com and all you do there in the archives, folks, the blogcaster, available there. And Jules at ucy.tv, thank you very much for your podcast, and your Thursday recast. And then Bo and Diddley and Grimner at Freedoms Network. Folks, there's a $100 donation needed, again, for Bo's submission for the servers. Those of you that participate, if you can donate there, please, thank you. And terrestrial broadcasters, thank you very much. I'll be here next week. Tech diffs or nature willing.